the ending of Avatar: Way of Water is pretty straightforward, but that doesn't mean there isn't plenty for me to talk about and what it might mean for future Avatar sequels. I'm John Aljets, there are spoilers ahead, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's talk about the death of Jake Sully's oldest child, who was caught by a stray bullet during a shootout on the sinking whaling vessel. This, honestly, might be one of the most predictable deaths in all of cinema. Seriously, if you walked into the theater thinking that both of those brothers were gonna make it out of this movie alive, welcome to basic storytelling. While it might on the surface seem like a death that only really served to increase the drama of the flick, it actually might wind up being one of the most pivotal moments in the entire series. As now that his son is buried in the ancestral home of the Metkayina, Jake is fully integrated into the clan. This seafaring group of Navi are his people now, and the village is his home. Meaning that more than likely Avatar 3 isn't going to see the Sully family moving on and befriending like some desert Navi or something like that. Especially considering the fact that we got briefly introduced to our new unobtainium, that being a bit of orange goo that is extracted from the brains of Tolkuns, the whale-like creatures that the Metkayina are closely associated with. Meaning that if Jake Sully wasn't around, the ocean people would still more than likely soon be under siege by RDA forces. So, running away isn't gonna save anyone this time. Finally, let's talk about Quaritch and Spider. Quaritch nearly died again, only being saved at the last minute by his son Spider, who couldn't bring himself to allow his father to drown in the sunken ship, despite being, kind of a bit of a jerk. Though he also couldn't bring himself to leave with the military man, instead opting to return to the Sully family. That is probably going to come up, if I had to venture a guess. So, the movie leaves us with the Sullys down one Navi son, up one adoptive human son, and with a whole new group of Navi to call their allies, who are spiritually bonded to floating fountains of youth. Oh, and they also have an adoptive daughter who is a Jesus allegory with a capital A. Yeah, let's talk about Kiri because she's probably going to be important. Through the entirety of this movie, Kiri is kind of an enigma. As she is introduced, she is stated to be the result of some unexplained circumstances, as somehow Dr. Grace's avatar body became pregnant after Grace died at the end of the first movie. And we get absolutely no answers about this. None. Zip. Nada. Nilch. Kiri does speak with Grace very briefly via her spiritual connection to Eywa, but before she can get anything out of her, Kiri has a seizure, which leads to us learning that she has a form of epilepsy. A problem for her that ultimately doesn't play into the story of this movie at all, but you can bet your bottom dollar that it will in the future. Kiri is shown to have a very unique connection with Eywa, stating that she can hear her all around her even if she isn't directly communicating with one of the Navi's special trees, which might play into her ability to speak with and harness the denizens of Pandora in ways that other Navi seem incapable of. This more than likely has something to do with the fact that her mother died while connected to Eywa directly, which probably messed with some stuff and, if I had to guess, led directly to Kiri's existence. Meaning that in this series, Sigourney Weaver managed to not only land the roles of Virgin Mary, but also Jesus as well. That's gotta be a record or something. Okay, so how is all of this gonna play into future Avatar movies? Well, it's hard to say, but I have a few ideas. Let's start with Spider's whole deal. Way I see it, this could lead to one of two possible outcomes. First, he could go full heel and defect to the human side at some point in a future movie. Given his connection to his father, who he does seem to harbor some positive feelings for, that relationship could sway him away from the Navi, especially if Quaritch is put in danger again. Or he could wind up being a redeeming force for his father. Don't get me wrong, Quaritch is basically straight up evil. At least that's the way he's presented to us. However, in this movie, Spider helps him learn a lot more about the Navi, which could eventually help him realize the error of his ways. Let's not forget, after all, that Jake first started out the original film as someone with very human-centric motivations, only to be swayed over by the blue cat people as he learned more about them. Now, which of these two outcomes do I think is the most likely? Definitely that first one. Things are not gonna go well for Spider once the Sullys find out that he actively saved the life of their biggest enemy. So that alone might be enough to drive a wedge between him and the entirety of the Navi people. However, there is something that will probably hold him closer to them despite his actions. that being his relationship with Kiri. Perhaps that is the role that Kiri will play. She will step up as a sort of personification of Eywa, acting as a unifying force between all beings who live on Pandora, including the humans, who are almost being forced to colonize the planet by the death of Earth. Not that you would think Pandora would be such a cool place to call home for humans. I mean, they can't even breathe the air. So, you know, not a great choice. Either way, I could see future movies kind of pushing Jake and Neytiri to the side while playing up Kiri as a new main protagonist, as she brings the full might of Pandora down either against the humans or in order to harmonize with them. Guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. Like, all of that. The movie was good. It was good. Certainly pretty, and definitely better than the first one. Although I'll be honest with you, I think I probably would have enjoyed it more if they just cut the RDA stuff out entirely. Just give me 3 hours of Jake Sully hanging out with slightly differently colored blue people, learning how to like tame whales and stuff. That sounds like a good time. I'd watch the hell out of that movie. But no, we've got to have conflict. Whatever.